Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your service in this regard in this incident, and of course to your service to your community and your country. With that, my questions primarily will be to Senator Lieberman and Professor Suthers. And I know some of it's been covered a little bit by the acting chairman at this point, but I can't help but just reiterate some names to you. Richard Reed, Jose Padilla, Ayman Ferris, the Virginia Jihad Network, Assam Hamoud, the Lackawanna Six, the Fort Dix Six Blotters, Nidal Hassan, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and Mohammed Atta. Now, Senator Lieberman, in your opening statement and subsequent questions, I think the American people would agree with you, and I think that you get it, so to speak. But for the professor in particular, I think those names are probably familiar to you. What would you say they have in common?
I would say obviously they have in common their religion and if you will, extremist Muslim ideology.
Okay, thank you. And that's my concern. You know, in the 5th century B.C., Sun Tzu said, "Know thy enemy and know thyself." And as a military officer, of course, it served me well. And based on research, at least 50 publicly known radical Islamist-inspired terror plots targeting the United States have been foiled since 9/11. And did you know, Professor, that 30 of the FBI's 31 most wanted terrorists are radical Islamists?
As a number, no, I did not.
Okay, so my concern, is, among other things, is that you're a professor, and I listened to your testimony, and it seems like there is a reluctance to acknowledge who the face and who our enemy is by name. And maybe we're having a definitional problem here, but you know, and let me read the President's recent statement. The President stated that the dangers to our homeland now come from self-radicalized individuals who, because of whatever warped, twisted ideas they may have, may decide to carry out an attack. Where do you suppose these ideas come from, Professor?
They could come from a variety of extremist ideologies, and your facts are correct. There have been a number of individuals indicted since 9/11. Specifically, 207 individuals have been indicted since 9/11 in the United States that have, as you've mentioned, if we will, an al-Qaeda ideology. 5% of those people for roles in violent incidents. There have been 139 right-wing militants indicted since 9/11, where just under 50% of those people were engaged in violent attacks before arrest. So my point and my testimony was one of, although the facts are correct with regards to the extremist ideology they share, that we understand that radicalization is not monopolized by any particular ideology or religion or race.
But by and large, would you agree that the greatest propensity, by far, is the radical Islam, not any other one, just that one?
I would agree that based on the facts we have today, absolutely, that would support that.
Okay, so with that, Senator Lieberman, the YouTube account under Tamerlan's, by the way, and his name is The Sword of Islam, showed that he had viewed multiple Russian language videos on radical Islam and even compiled playlists of jihadi videos. Should we and should the authorities have been concerned?
Well, of course, and part of your investigation and the executive branch investigation has to be, why weren't they? Why didn't they? Did they know that? I'm afraid that they didn't know that Tamerlan had put up his own YouTube channel and was broadcasting all those violent Islamist extremist videos. But obviously, that's one of the places where the system broke down.
So let me ask you this question, Senator. Why do you think, I know you can't answer for him, but why do you think this administration is unwilling to use the term radical Islam to describe these acts of terror? And this is really important because investigations and our national mood about how we deal with this, I think, is expressed here. What is gained by the President's refusal to appropriately describe jihad as expressed by radical Islamist extremists as their motivation for attacking the United States and other free nations?
Well, I don't know. In other words, this is a debate that I had over the years during my time in the Senate, and particularly with this administration. For all the reasons you say, you got to know your enemy and call it what it is. Particularly now, there's a danger if you think that the enemy is al-Qaeda and you observe that bin Laden is killed and Central al-Qaeda is on the run. You may be lured into believing that the war is over. But there is this ideology, violent Islamist extremism, which in fact is not over, it's spreading. And it's not just spreading to enough people here to make us worry at home, but it's what's happening in Syria and Mali and Yemen and Pakistan and Afghanistan and Chechnya and Dagestan.
In America.
In America. So I don't get it. I presume it's because of a sensitivity that if you use the term Islam or Muslim at all with relationship to violence or extremism or terrorism, it will do offense to Muslims. But I'm privileged to know a lot of my fellow Americans who are Muslim. They're law-abiding, they're patriotic, they have nothing to do with these criminals and terrorists. And I don't think it's fair to them. I don't think it's fair to them not to single these people out. Maybe the words we're using are not right. But, somebody else said this, I'll just repeat it. It's too short and too simple, but unfortunately it does bear some truth, which is that obviously most Muslims are not terrorists. But the sad fact is today that most terrorists that we're dealing with in America are inspired by this violent Islamic extremist ideology. And you got to recognize that to deal with it.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.